Okay, men, we have found the solution for how to control your lust. Coming up next. All right, everybody. Hey, Jeff here. Thanks for joining me. I got a new violin. I wanted to do a little presentation on this band that I'm pretty sure the majority of people out there are probably not familiar with. They are a Christian band. Started back in the late 80s. They're kind of a punk, poppish type, mostly punk band. And they just released their first vinyl. The band I'm referring to is a band known as Lust Control. Now, who are Lust Control, you ask? I heard you. You were asking. Like I said, back in the 80s, 88 and 89, they released 2 cassette tapes. These are back in the days when everybody did, demo, custom cassette type things when you weren't on a label. The band themselves were a bunch of unknown guys. They all wore ski masks. And the topics on these are very, very, nowadays you would consider this very, very right wing, very, very, what's a good word? I wouldn't say evangelical per se. Basically, the songs are just bluntly dealing with all kinds of issues and struggles in the sex world that men have with sex in the world. They released an album, I say an album because it was a collection of songs. On one tape, back in 1988 was their first cassette. And it was called This Is a Condemnation. Now, take the word condemnation and break it into condom, like in rubbers, nation. And so you can see that they're already set up to be, very, very controversial. Songs like I Want to Die, Mad at the Girls, The Big M, probably one of the most popular songs they've done that's kind of real controversial, dealing with the big M, things that you do while you're alone without a partner. Then they came out the next year with the cassette called Dancing Naked. And again, you got songs like Dancing Naked, What About Your Wife, Fun Fun Feeling, Living in the New Age. Anyway, lots of songs that were just, like I say, very controversial, a little too much for even church people for the most part, but very much attacking issues that kids and men in general deal with when it comes to purity and sex and stuff like that. So it was interesting, but again, they wore ski masks. We never knew really who they were, and their punk band, just kind of rough around the edges, singer kind of barking out stuff like that. It was kind of fun, but then again, very, as a guy, you're listening to it, it can get very convicting depending on your lifestyle. But they were trying to do that. They were trying to stir up a little, questions and concerns about, living a pure life as a Christian young man. Well, in 1991, those 2 cassettes were released on a new label at the time called Blonde Vinyl, and they called it Fun Fun Feeling. And these are the guys in their ski masks. And it was the 2 cassettes that I just mentioned, put together on one thing, plus a couple live tracks they played at one of the Christian festivals, Cornerstone Festival, back in the days. So this came out. Then, in 1994, they started to record a song for a compilation album. They went ahead and recorded 4 songs. The song never did make it to the compilation album, and then the 4 songs were released as a little 4-song cassette called Feminazi. So 94, that was about it. In 2000, this label, M8 Records, came around, and Millennium 8. They were releasing a lot of classic stuff from the cassette days. They released a lot of great stuff, and they put out the worst of Lust Control. Basically, it's just all 3 of the cassettes that had been released by the band. Not majorly remastered or anything, so it's kind of like cassettes on CD. Same with this. These were a little, they're a little cleaned up, but it's really just the cassettes. It wasn't like the band went in and recorded anything new. However, then, and I totally forgot the year on this. This was released in 2006, but this is a reissue And this is before 94, before they broke up. They did go into the studio to record a lot of the songs from those first two cassettes, and they re-recorded them in an actual studio, and then the album came out called this is called, we are not ashamed is the name of the album. This is called Getting It Right the Second Time. They remastered it, reissued it, and put a lot of bonus tracks on here. So this was released in 2006, but this is basically kind of like a best of from the first two cassettes, and they released it on here. It's got, this whole thing has actually 35 songs on it, but some of the songs are 12 seconds, 11 seconds. Some of the songs are a minute. Some of the songs are less than a minute. Some of the songs are 4 or 5 minutes. So it's a lot of little tracks. So it's not hard to find that the first album itself, the actual release here has got 17 tracks, and then they had 3 bonus tracks, which were some live stuff. Then they remastered the entire This Is a Condemnation in stereo. They fixed it from the previous release, and they put that on here. Plus they had some other radio spots and some interview type stuff, and then a couple karaoke tracks for the Big M and Planned Parenthood. So this was kind of neat. This was Retroactive Records released back in 2006. This is what the original looked like. We Are Not Ashamed. And then they released it, reissued here. One of the pictures here is a pile of steaming mess. Anyway, as you can tell, very controversial. But punk music is like that. You got that nice punker on the front. Well, anyway, by that time, now back in the early 90s, again, nobody knew who these guys were. They just went by just had one single name. But back in the early 90s, I remember talking to a fella, Mr. Doug Van Pelt. He is the editor of Heaven's Metal magazine back in the day, later became HM. And back in like 91, I'd run a magazine myself back in the day. I think I've shown those in a previous segment. I showed these, but I used to run the Pendragon magazine and put out a couple issues of a magazine. So it was an underground music magazine dealing with Christian music and stuff. Doug Van Pelt had started Heaven's Metal in 1985. I started mine in 89-ish. So anyway, it seems like everybody back in the day was trying to run their own mag. Doug really succeeded. He had one of the biggest mags out there. It continued on. It's still basically alive today, though not in print. It's in digital format. Talking to him one day back in 91, I think it was, somewhere around there, and he revealed to me that it was he that was the singer of Lust Control. So that was interesting to finally have that mystery revealed. Later, they revealed everything, and I think in concert they eventually did take off the masks, according to one of his interviews. So he revealed that, and I guess some of the other guys in the band were members of One Bad Pig. So it was kind of like some of these people down in Texas who put this stuff together. The band basically disappeared for a long time, and then in 2013ish, they released the Tiny Little Dots. And so then this was a totally new, in the studio, probably their best sounding recording. We Are Not Ashamed is good. It's in the studio, but of course, we're talking 90s information and kind of a, just kind of a lower budget. This seems like it's a higher budget, better quality, and, a bunch of all new songs. So then they ran a Kickstarter program earlier this year where they wanted to release it on vinyl. And so I jumped on board. Here's the vinyl. I actually guess when I jumped on board, I think I was the first one to jump on board because I remember being the first one, the first backer. Then I noticed when I got this in the mail yesterday that up at the top it says, special thanks to our Kickstarter supporters. And I don't know if you'll be able to see this in such small print, but the very first name is my name. Yay! Look, my name in print. And it's got the traditional lyrics and stuff like that. The album itself is on black vinyl, but they printed, I think he said, 8 or 10, half a dozen on various colored vinyl, just kind of for the fun of it. And I requested one, and I got one. It's on just beautiful reddish marble color. It's very pretty. And they autographed them all. So it's got to Jeff, Gene, and this is Douglas Gene, Bob, Butch, Brad. And it came with the Lust Control sticker, which is right here. I just dropped that in there, but it's actually a separate sticker. Lust Control. Anyway, so I want to do a little needle drop on this because I really like this album because, I mean, you know, the production makes it really cool. It's a bit heavier than the punkish stuff of the past. Lots of cool grungy guitars. So let's do that now just to give you a tidbit of what it sounds like. And I don't think I'll get nailed for copyright. If so, I'll just tell Doug to stop doing that. But anyway, check this out. Alright, so that's it. Lust Control, Tiny Little Dots. The new album, now on vinyl and rock. Well, it says it's on Rottweiler Records, but it was a Kickstarter program that I guess they picked up with the Rottweiler and worked on. Anyway, cool stuff. Not for the faint at heart. You know, definitely some cutting, convicting type things if you're into, you know, living the a pure life for Christian young men. Anyway, thanks for joining me. Great stuff. Check them out. You can probably find some of their stuff on YouTube. Check them out. See what you think. Thanks a lot. Rock on.